Japan is back.
Female Prime Minister in the history of Japan. Madam Prime Minister, please say a few words.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you all. 通訳本日、米国の海軍創設250周年という記念すべき節目にトランプ大統領とともに地域の
God bless America. That's a big beautiful building.
What's up, family? So right now the Tokyo Tower is lit up red, white, and blue. Not for Japan, for us, for America's 250th birthday. And I need you to sit with that for a second because here's the hot take. A country we dropped a nuclear bomb on 80 years ago is out here celebrating our independence harder than some folks in our own cities. They are grifting us cherry blossom trees for the 250th anniversary, while some people right here can't even say happy birthday to their own country without slapping an asterisk on it. So we're going to break this down, look at both sides, family, and I'm going to give you my honest take by the end. So let's start with what actually happening over there, right? Because the visuals alone are wild. You got the Tokyo skyline lit up, the Rainbow Bridge glowing red, white, and blue, and the Tokyo Agua Symphony putting on a whole water and light show. Fireworks going off in our colors, as you guys can see here. The amazing the amazing bridge, right? The amazement of it, right? And I think it's a beautiful thing, right? It shows diplomacy in a way, I guess you could say, in other words. It shows unity, which I'm all for and always about. And it shows that countries can get along, but also celebrate together and also do business together. And you ain't got to be the best of the best to lock in arms, but the appreciation, right? So I believe this is the example of unity and also contradicts those opinions of what some individuals say that don't agree with our current president or, disapprove of him being in office in its entirety, calling him a fascist and a Hitler and dictator and stuff like that. But I believe this contradicts that in the name of diplomacy, right? Because I don't think dictators would, be trying to be in unity with other countries, stop and lockstep. So this is also right. Um, Another performance, as you guys seen, with Donald Trump, and you seen the first lady in the first clip being framed in fireworks as they celebrate our country. And I believe it's just beautiful. It's beautiful. It's amazing. And I think it's love, right? You can say it signifies. Let me know what you guys think about that in the comments. So you guys see that. And then, the Rainbow Bridge, these are the light up times in which it happened on, the 4th of July Eve of July 3rd. As the day of recording of this video, it is 4th of July. But yeah, to put that out there, and you guys are seeing with the whole light show and fireworks going off in our colors, this isn't some small gesture. This is a country going all out for another nation's birthday. And then you got, like I said, the cherry blossom trees here. I want you guys to see here.
We are here at the tidal basin to check out the cherry blossom trees Japan gifted to the people of the United States in the celebration of America's 250th anniversary. We
Shout out to the trees, man. And also, I believe also, just as Japan love United States love Japan, we make more money together, right? With tourists and things like that. And you could go check out the cherry blossom trees, right? So it works hand in hand. Diplomacy at its finest in its beautiful form in the name of unity and love. And Japan gifted actual trees to the United States to celebrate 250 years of America existing, of our country. And here's what this actually looks like in real life. Because imagine your neighbor, somebody you have real problems with in the past, showing up to your family reunion with a gift, dressed nice, taking pictures, genuinely happy to be there. And that's what this looks like. Now, let's be real about the history because I'm not going to skip past it. 8 years ago, we were at war with Japan. We dropped nuclear bombs on that country and we occupied it after the war. We rewrote their constitution. That's not a small footnote. That's a heavy history. And yet, fast forward to today, and Japan is out here celebrating us like this. Think about what that tells you. That's a country that went through something devastating and made a choice to move forward instead of staying stuck. And when you look at Japan today, you're looking at a high trust society, low crime, stability, people who respect the relationship they built with us over the decades instead of relitigating it every single year. And I'm not saying that to turn this into some big economic lecture, family. I'm just saying, look at the result. A nation that had every reason to hold a grudge chose partisanship instead. Now, compare that to what we see at home. You got people right here, born and raised in this country, who never went through anything close to what Japan went through, and they still can't get past certain parts of our history to enough to just enjoy a birthday. A society that got nuked, move on. Some folks in our own cities are still stuck, relitigating things that happened generations ago, like it happened to them personally yesterday. But don't take my word for it. Check it out.
The United States of America was founded on a simple idea: liberty and justice for some. Let's get smarter in seconds about it. On July 2nd, 1776, the Continental Congress voted to declare the 13 colonies free and independent states from Great Britain. And then on July 4th, 1776, they adopted the text of the Declaration of Independence, and that is why we celebrate the 4th of July. But of the 56 men who signed the Declaration of Independence, 41 enslaved people at some point in their lives. And the colonies that would go on to become the United States were built on stolen land taken from indigenous people through broken treaties and outright violence, and enslavement was protected by law in all 13 of them. We the people did not include everyone. Women, indigenous nations, enslaved Africans, and even some white men who didn't own property were excluded from power. Thomas Jefferson wrote all men are created equal while simultaneously enslaving more than 600 people over the course of his lifetime. And this contradiction wasn't lost on people at the time. Enslaved Africans knew that slavery was wrong, and so did many founding fathers who wrote texts about how enslavement was a great evil while also profiting from it at the same time. And in 1852, Frederick Douglass famously asked, "And what to the American slave is your 4th of July?" His answer: "A day that reveals to him, more than all other days of the year, the gross injustice and cruelty to which he is the constant victim." Still, the 4th of July has long been promoted as a time to bring the country together. During World War I, President Woodrow Wilson would use patriotic holidays like Independence Day to promote ideas of Americanism, one that excluded black people and immigrants. And you know, President Woodrow Wilson, who was elected in 1912, was one of the last presidents to grow up in a household that actively used enslaved labor. And I think that informs his policy decisions because he is credited with resegregating the government and popularizing the KKK. Matter of fact, every U.S. president has grown up in a country where civil rights and human rights were not granted equally. So when we hear a president who grew up in a time where Jim Crow was the dominant social and legal system in the United States say, "Make America great again," we don't have to ask who he's making America great for. And all of this is because America's contradiction did not end in 1776. The United States has the largest incarcerated population anywhere on Earth, with 2 million people currently behind bars. Slavery, for example, is still constitutional because the 13th Amendment abolished it, except as a punishment for crime. Land treaties with indigenous nations continue to be disregarded. Bodily autonomy, including the right to decide when and whether you want to have children, varies from state to state and continues to be up for debate. And immigrants, who have always been part of America's story, continue to face deportation, family separation, and incarceration in unconscionable conditions. Just like in 1776, not all of us are free. The rights that we claim are central to our identity as Americans have not been distributed equally, and denying that fact does not make anyone safer or freer.
So there you have it. Still stuck relitigating things that happened generations ago, like I said. And look, I'm not saying history doesn't matter. I'm not saying we sweep anything under the rug. What I am saying is this. There's a difference between remembering your history and being trapped by it. And Japan and Japanese individuals remember theirs. They remember theirs. They didn't just let it stop them from building something new with us in the United States of America. Now, here's where it gets interesting, family, because Japan's celebrating us is one thing, but how some Americans reacted to this same exact weekend, as you guys seen, that's a whole different story. And where this really starts to matter. So script news here, as you guys can see on the screen right about now, and talker research put out a poll right around the 4th of July weekend, as it is currently. And family, the numbers tell a story all on their own. So let's break it down in plain English before I show you guys. Most Americans overall said they were excited about the 250th. That's the good news. But when you split it by party, that's where it gets messy. 61% of Democrats said they were excited about the 250th. 88% of Republicans said the same. Now, on the surface, that's not even that crazy of a gap. But then they asked a different question, and that's where the real split shows up. They asked people if it was appropriate for President Trump to be as involved as he was in these 250th celebrations. Only 27% of Democrats said yes, that's appropriate. 55% of Democrats, a clear majority, said it was inappropriate. Meanwhile, 80% of Republicans said his involvement was fine. Only 7% said it wasn't. So let me say that again because it matters. A majority of Democrats surveyed weren't upset about America turning 250. They were upset about who was standing on the stage while it happened. Now, to be fair, family, I get it. People have real reasons not to like a president. That's normal. That's politics. I'm not going to sit here and act like disliking Trump is some crazy irrational thing. People disagree with policies. People disagree with the man himself, and that's allowed. That's actually part of what makes this country work. You're allowed to not like your president, but here's where it doesn't add up for me. This isn't a rally. This isn't a campaign stop. This is the 250 years of a country existing. That number doesn't care who's in office. That number was going to hit whether Trump was president, whether Biden was president, whether anybody else was sitting in that chair. And if your excitement about that number goes up or down based on one man standing near a microphone, something's off in how you're measuring your pride in this country. And here's the detail that really puts it in perspective for me. According to the report, Americans across the board said they were more excited about the 200th anniversary back in 1976 than they are about this one, the 250th right now. Think about that. A bigger, rounder number, 250 years, and excitement is lower than it was for the 200th. That's not a small shift, family. That tells you how deep this divide has actually gotten over the last few decades. So from my perspective, the verdict is plain and simple. If your patriotism turns on and off depending on who's in the White House, that's not patriotism.
And with the 4th of July weekend in full swing, it is becoming more apparent that politics has reared its ugly head and inserted itself smack dab in the middle of the party. Scripps News senior congressional correspondent Nate Reed joins us now from our D.C. newsroom. And Nate, this morning, Scripps News and our partners at Talker Research, we got some brand new numbers out. And we wanted to get at two things. Number one, how Americans are feeling about the overall mood of the country going into the 250th celebration, but also the role that President Trump is playing, a more prominent role than presidents normally play on Independence Day, let alone a major milestone. What did we find in the survey?
Yeah, absolutely fascinating numbers here, Andrew. And look, I'd love to shake the hand of whoever commissioned this. It was you, so I thank you for that. This Scripps News Talker Research poll finding some pretty fascinating numbers on the 4th of July. Overwhelmingly, Democrats and Republicans are excited about the 250th anniversary of America. 61% of Dems, 88% of Republicans. Let's advance that screen, sorry. 28% of Democrats saying that they're not excited. 12% of Republicans saying that they are not excited. I want to point you to some numbers that were just on your screen, though. The excitement about President Donald Trump, concerns about President Trump's involvement. This is where the polls are as partisan and politically fractured as they get. Democrats, only 27% of them say that it's appropriate that President Trump is participating to the level that he is in these July 4th celebrations. 55% of Democrats, though, a majority, Andrew, clear majority, saying it's inappropriate how President Trump is participating in these 250th anniversary celebrations. 80% of Republicans, though, saying that they believe that it is appropriate. 7% of Republicans saying they believe it's inappropriate. So pretty clear partisan split there in terms of Democrats and Republicans. By the way, Americans across the board largely saying they were more excited about the 200th anniversary celebrations back in 1976 than they are for the 250th today. Certainly that political divide there about President Trump's involvement, really notable here, Andrew.
So like I said, if your patriotism turns on and off depending on who's in the White House, that's not patriotism. That's partisanship, wearing a flag. as a costume. Real pride in your country doesn't come with an expiration date every 4 years. Now, let's get on to the other side of this, family, because I told you I'll give you the full breakdown, not just the parts that make my point easy. So let's talk about the stolen land argument, right? Because a lot of people are making it right now, and I want to give it a fair hearing before I respond to it. And the argument goes like this. The Declaration of Independence said all men are created equal, but it didn't apply to everybody in that room's own house. Slavery was legal in all 13 colonies. Land was taken from indigenous nations through broken treaties and outright violence. Women couldn't vote, enslaved people weren't counted as full human beings under the law. So when you hear people say the country wasn't built for everybody, that's not made up, that's documented, that's real. And I want to sit with the weight of that for a second instead of rushing past it. Back in 1852, Frederick Douglass stood up and asked a room full of people a question that still hits hard today. He asked, what to the American slave is your 4th of July? And his answer was that it's a day that shows him more than any other day of the year the injustice he lives under every single day. Family, that's not some talking point somebody invented on the internet last week. That's a real man living through real bondage asking a real question. I'm not going to sit here and act like that doesn't count for something, but here's my perspective on it. And this is where I think a lot of people stop too early in the thinking. Naming the imperfections doesn't mean the whole idea was garbage from the start. It means the founders wrote a check the country still had to grow into the funds for. They put a promise on paper that was bigger than the world they were actually living in at the time. And the story of America since then has been a story of people generation after generation holding this country to that promise and forcing it to catch up to its own words. Think about it like this. If a business gets started by some flawed people with real blind spots, real bad decisions on the books, that business isn't automatically worthless forever just because of how it opened its doors. What actually matters is rather, it keeps correcting course. Does it fix what's broken? Does it pay it? Does it pay back what it owes? Does it grow into something better than where it started? And that's the real measure, not the first year alone, the whole track record. And here's the double standard I can't get past, family. Nobody is out here demanding Japan renounce their entire history because of what the empire did before 1945. Nobody's telling Japan they can't be proud of their flag, their culture, their nation because of what came before. We let Japan hold both truths, a hard past and a proud present at the same time. So why does America get held to a different rule? Why do we say a country can grow past its history everywhere except right here at home? And this is where the bigger conversation comes in, family, because it's not really about the facts at this point. It's about rather some people are willing to let this country have this one day, this one win, without turning it into a whole debate.
At City Hall, as I sit behind George Washington's desk, alongside new Americans who came to this country, I cannot see all of America. But like so many who came before, I can see New York City. The city I see today looks very different than the one that greeted George Washington. In July of 1776, our city simmered under the yoke of oppression. The British had imposed a colonial rule so repressive that 250 years ago, 80 miles south, a small group of newspaper editors, farmers, and soldiers signed their names on a document declaring truths that feel self-evident now, but were revolutionary then, establishing the ideals our nation still strives to fulfill. The British did not take it well. War broke out, and that August, as the largest battle of the Revolutionary War unfolded in Brooklyn, batteries on Governor's Island took aim at British ships anchored just offshore. We were outgunned, we were outmanned, and we were soundly defeated. After only a few months, it appeared our fledgling attempt at democracy was on the precipice of collapse. But that night, with the moon overhead, thousands of our soldiers silently climbed into ferries and flat-bottom boats and escaped to Manhattan. The Continental Army survived to fight another day. Independence may have been declared in Philadelphia, but it was rescued in New York City. George Washington was the last to leave Brooklyn. As he waited at the river's edge, the sun beginning its rise, he would have looked out over New York City's waters and seen what so many have seen in the 250 years since, an opportunity to begin anew. Those opportunities, like everything in New York City, are not given. They are won. In 1838, 11 years after New York outlawed slavery, a recently emancipated black man by the name of James Weeks sought to begin anew as well, and to help hundreds of others do the same. He bought property in Brooklyn, won himself the right to vote, and sold lots to others newly freed. When they landed in New York Harbor, they knew they had something waiting for them.
It's important to note, Mamdani also talked about what he saw as American exceptionalism, which is the idea that it is being written every single day. Joining me now is Scott McFarland, Chief Washington Correspondent at Midas Touch Network. So, Scott, when you see, we're seeing a portion of these messages, right? But you've got Mamdani and Moore, a Democratic socialist and a relative centrist. How would you sum up the Democrats' message ahead of the July 4th holiday? Is it unified?
They don't want to be surrendering patriotism to Donald Trump's show on the National Mall. I think when it comes to the patriotic undertones of this incredibly important birthday, they are unified, and they're trying to emphasize it. In Pennsylvania, in Philadelphia yesterday, it was like this tale of two cities, Erica. They had this event at Independence Hall, a parade, a concert at night, truly devoid of partisanship, while on the National Mall in Washington was the other city where things seem to be overtly political by nature. There is a contrast we can see in what's happening in U.S. communities and this great American state fair and whatever is to happen here tomorrow, if the heat will allow it, with Trump's rally. I think Democrats are very much unified on this singular issue of celebrating the country.
So,
family, let's talk about what's happening on the political side, right? As you guys just heard, because you got certain politicians out here trying to reclaim the 4th of July with these big speeches, sitting behind George Washington's desk, talking about new immigrants, talking about the founding spirit of the country, painting themselves as the truth keepers of the American story. And look, from my perspective, I think I know exactly why this is happening. It doesn't look good to hate your own country out loud. People notice that. So there's an attempt right now to rebrand patriotism without actually changing the belief underneath it. Same people, same views, just a new speech for the cameras in July. But here's where it doesn't add up for me, family. You can't spend years telling everybody the country was built on stolen land, that the whole system is broken beyond repair, that the flag represents oppression, and then flip the switch every July into a founding father speech about George Washington's desk. Those two things don't sit together. One of them isn't real, and the people notice the difference, family. And they notice when pride is genuine and when it's just a costume you put on for the season. You can't wear the country like an outfit for 1 week and take it off, the other 51, right? So, and I'm going to say it again. You can't wear the country like an outfit for 1 week and take it off for the other 51. So here's my verdict, plain and simple. Gratitude and criticism aren't opposites. You can love this country and still call out where it needs work without picking a side based on who's sitting in the Oval Office that day. And here's some wisdom for everybody watching, spiritual or not. A house doesn't get torn down because you find a crack in the foundation. You repair it. You build on it. You don't burn the whole thing down and sleep outside. Proverbs chapter 14 puts it plain. The wise builds her house, but the foolish tears her down with her own hands. I'm going to say it again. The wise builds her house, but the foolish tears hers down with her own hands. That's the choice in front of us right now, family. Keep building or keep tearing down. Let me know what you think in the comments. Like, subscribe, turn on post notifications, spread the peace, love, and positivity. Let the love supersede the hate, family. I'll catch you next one. Love you guys. Have a happy 4th of July in this amazing country of the United States of America on its 250th birthday. I love you guys, and I appreciate you for rocking with me. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. As always, we're just having a productive conversation. Catch you next one, family. Peace.